Why did she freeze the moment her finger brushed the trigger? The night was quiet, unnervingly quiet. Dust carried in the wind scratched at her cheek, sticking to the sweat beneath her eyeshade. The scope's crosshair wavered over a figure moving below, a man carrying something slung across his shoulder. He wasn't alone. Two smaller shadows followed behind him, and one of them laughed, the fragile, careless sound of a child. Her heart stuttered. She pulled her head back just a fraction. That sound didn't belong here, not in the sector, not in the war she had been told was clean, precise, calculated. Children were never mentioned in the briefings. Her spotter whispered, "Target at 300. Do you have the shot?" She swallowed hard, throat dry as the sand. The order had been simple: intercept a courier, eliminate before he reached the village. But no one had said the courier would bring his children with him. "Take it," the voice pressed again, urgent. Her finger hovered, trembled. And in that hesitation the man looked up. Just a flicker, a glance, his face catching moonlight. Not fear, not suspicion, only the fleeting instinct of a father checking his path. Then he slipped beneath the cover of a ruined wall, his children's hands clutching his coat. The moment was gone. Her radio hissed with silence, then anger. "You had the shot, why didn't you?" But she already knew why, and it wasn't something she could explain. That was the night she started carrying guilt in her chest, heavier than her rifle, louder than any gunfire. Then, months later, she sat in the corner of a briefing room. The overhead projector hummed, casting ghostly maps on the wall. Others leaned in, tapping pens, shifting paper, chewing gum with the calmness of soldiers used to routine. She sat straight-backed, hands folded on her lap, eyes fixed on the shifting grids of terrain. But nobody looked at her, not directly. They had learned not to. Her call sign still appeared on the roster, but after that night her place in the unit had changed. She was there, yet not there. Present in uniform, absent in trust. She told herself she didn't care. She told herself their silence was easier than their words. But the truth pressed against her ribs like a shard of glass. She couldn't breathe without feeling it. "Recon team will insert from the North Ridge," the commander said, voice clipped. "Intel suggests a meeting in the Valley compound. We want eyes on it, nothing more. Confirm before dawn." The words washed over her, but her mind snagged on one detail. Eyes on it, nothing more. Surveillance, not engagement. That should have comforted her. Instead, it twisted like a blade. Because she remembered saying those same words once, the night she hadn't fired. After the briefing, as chairs scraped back and boots scuffed the floor, one of the younger soldiers, a medic, no more than 22, glanced at her. He held her gaze for half a second longer than necessary. Not hostility, not judgment, just curiosity, maybe pity. She hated pity more than silence. So she looked away first, tightening her jaw, grabbing her gear with mechanical precision. Then, the night of insertion, the desert was cold enough to sting her bones. She moved with the team, each step sinking into the sand, the silence broken only by the rasp of breath under cloth. Above them, the stars burned like silent witnesses. She caught fragments of banter between two soldiers ahead of her. One spoke about his brother's wedding, another about a fishing trip he planned for after deployment. Small, ordinary things, human things. For a moment she let herself listen, let herself feel the weight of what she had lost, not a wedding, not a fishing trip, but the ease of belonging. Once she had been part of that rhythm. Now she was the pause in their conversation, the silence they stepped around. When they reached the ridge, the team spread out, lowering to prone positions. Through her scope, the valley lay stretched beneath them, a compound ringed by shadows, faint lantern glow flickering against mud walls. Figures moved inside, too distant for details. She exhaled slowly, adjusted the lens. The crosshairs sharpened on a man entering the compound gate, something bulky tucked under his arm. Her chest tightened. Not again. Her spotter shifted beside her. Different man this time, but the words were the same. Target acquired. Do you confirm? She hesitated, the guilt surge choking. But then something unexpected happened. The man below turned, passing into lamplight, and she saw his face clearly. Not the courier from months ago, not a father. A scar ran from ear to jaw. His hand gripped the weapon too tightly, too ready. She had seen that kind of posture before, a man prepared to use it. Her heartbeat slowed, not calm exactly, but clarity. I confirm, she whispered. The mission wasn't to kill, not yet, only to watch. But as the night stretched on, every flicker of movement pulled her deeper into the tension of waiting. She hated waiting. It gave memory room to breathe. Her hands itched with the phantom weight of that first decision, the one she couldn't undo. She wondered if the man she spared was still alive, if his children still laughed, if her failure had somehow been their salvation. Or if her hesitation had cost lives she'd never see. The not knowing was worse than the guilt itself. Then hours bled into hours. The desert's silence grew oppressive. Somewhere behind her, the medic from the briefing shifted, muttering about the cold. She almost turned, almost spoke, but the words died on her tongue. What could she say? That the cold was nothing compared to the frost inside her. Then suddenly motion. A vehicle approached the compound, headlights off, engine muffled. She tracked it through her scope, pulse quickening. Figures emerged, armed, focused. Not casual villagers, not men protecting children. These were soldiers or something like them. The commander's voice hissed in her earpiece. Stay sharp, record everything. She did, but her mind kept tugging at a thread. Something didn't fit. The courier's scarred face. The secrecy. The valley chosen for the meeting. It wasn't random. Her gut twisted with recognition, not of the men but of the pattern. A pattern she had seen once before, in a different briefing, a different life. She blinked, heart hammering. Could it be the same network? If it was, then her failure months ago wasn't just personal. It was connected. The realization chilled her more than the desert night. Then, at dawn, the team exfiltrated, slipping back across the ridge unseen. The mission had been a success by every metric. No casualties, no mistakes, valuable intel gathered. And yet she carried something heavier than her pack. Not proof, not clarity, but a suspicion. A thread that, if pulled, could unravel everything. She wanted to speak up in debrief, wanted to raise her voice. But as the others filed reports and the commander nodded, she sat silent, knuckles white against her knees. Because what if she was wrong? What if her instincts, the same instincts that had failed her before, led them astray again? The guilt coiled tighter. She thought of the man's scarred face, of the children's laughter, of the two memories colliding, one with mercy, one with fear. And she wondered, how many more nights like this would she endure before courage outweighed guilt? How long could she live carrying silence like a weapon inside her chest? Why was the file placed in front of her, when everyone knew she wasn't trusted anymore? The commander slid it across the table without meeting her eyes. A man of few words, always sharp, always cold, he kept his tone neutral. Classified, read it, memorize it, then burn it. Her fingers hesitated before touching the folder. The others at the table shifted, some exchanging glances. She didn't need to look to know what they were thinking. Why her? Why now? The room smelled faintly of coffee gone cold, paper too often handled. A hum from the fluorescent light above filled the silence between breaths. Finally, she opened the file. Inside, grainy photos, blurred images taken at night, a face caught mid-turn, scar splitting his jaw. Her chest constricted. It was him, the man from the compound. Her breath stilled as she scanned the page, words leaping out like strikes. Network financier, weapons movement, high-value courier. She forced her face to remain still. If anyone noticed her reaction, questions would follow, questions she wasn't ready to answer. But the truth pressed inside her ribs. The man she had spared months ago wasn't just alive. He was bigger, darker, and far more dangerous than she had allowed herself to believe. Then, later, alone in her quarters, she sat on the edge of her bunk, the folder open in her lap. The photos stared back, each one an accusation. Her mind replayed that first night in fragments, the children, the laughter, the hesitation. And now this. Her hands shook, not with fear but with the weight of certainty. This was on me. She shut the folder, shoved it beneath her pillow like a secret she couldn't bury. Her throat ached with the urge to scream, but the walls were thin, and the silence of the base was merciless. Instead, she whispered to herself, just one line, "I made him." And the guilt inside her grew heavier. Then, the next mission came fast, too fast for her to process. Recon had identified a convoy leaving the Valley compound, heading east. They were ordered to intercept, confirm cargo, and extract information if possible. She wanted to refuse, wanted to tell the commander she wasn't the one for this. But her voice caught in her throat when the briefing ended, and once again she found herself moving with the unit, as if the weight of choice had been stripped from her. The desert sun this time was merciless, bleaching the horizon to white, burning against the back of her neck. She felt exposed, raw, as if the light itself was revealing her secrets. They set up along a ridge, camouflage draped, rifles ready. Hours dragged. Sweat rolled down her back, soaking into her uniform. And then dust trails. The convoy. 2 trucks armored but not military grade. Engines growling, tires chewing sand. Through her scope she watched them approach, her pulse syncing with the rhythm of their movement. Her spotter whispered coordinates. She adjusted, crosshairs locking on the lead truck's windshield. A simple command would drop the driver, stop the convoy cold. But the commander's voice crackled in her ear. "Hold fire, wait." She clenched her jaw. Wait, always wait. The hardest part wasn't pulling the trigger, it was the silence before it. The truck slowed near a ridge cut, halting. Men jumped down, weapons slung, formation tight. She recognized the posture, not smugglers, not villagers, trained, dangerous. Her finger itched against the trigger guard, memory tugging at her nerves. The man with the scar could be among them, maybe watching, maybe laughing at her weakness months ago. She wanted to ask, "Do I have permission? Do I take it this time?" But the words stuck, because what if she asked and froze again? Her lungs burned with the effort of steady breathing. Then movement. The second truck's door opened. A man stepped down, taller, heavier, moving with authority. The scarred courier. Her blood roared in her ears. The commander's voice, visual confirmed, "All units track only, do not engage." She pressed her eye to the scope, heart hammering. Every muscle screamed to act. This was her chance, her redemption, the mistake undone. But the order bound her, "Do not engage." She obeyed, she had no choice. And as she watched the convoy disappear into the dust, her chest hollowed out, leaving only silence where courage should have lived. Then, that night she sat apart from the others. Around the fire pit, the team exchanged stories, laughter brittle against the edge of fatigue. She kept to the shadows, cleaning her rifle with motions too precise, too rigid. The medic, the boy who had once looked at her with curiosity, broke away from the group. He walked over, crouched near her. "You didn't eat," he said. "Not a question, just an observation." She shrugged, "Not hungry." He studied her in the dim light, his expression soft, cautious. Then he said something she hadn't expected. "You see things the rest of us don't you?" Her hands froze on the rifle. "What do you mean?" He shrugged lightly, almost apologetic. "I don't know, just the way you look out there. It's not just at the targets, it's like you're seeing everything." She wanted to deny it, to laugh, but instead her throat tightened. Because maybe he was right, she did see everything, the wrong things, the things she couldn't unsee. She dropped her gaze back to the rifle. Seeing isn't always a gift. The medic hesitated, then nodded. Maybe, but it keeps the rest of us alive. He stood and walked away before she could reply, leaving her with silence, her rifle, and a truth she wasn't ready to hold. Then, the next morning the commander called her in privately. His face was unreadable, voice clipped. Your hesitation months ago. I know what you're carrying, don't think I don't. Her stomach dropped, heat flared in her chest. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You think it was mercy, but mercy doesn't always save. Sometimes it destroys, remember that. She wanted to speak, to confess, to scream. I know, I live with it every night. But she didn't, she simply nodded. The commander studied her a moment longer, then slid a new photo across the desk. A different face, younger, hardened eyes. His name is Ismail, the commander said. Courier's lieutenant, they moved together, we'll find him first. He's the key to the courier, to all of it. She stared at the photo. The man's gaze seemed to look back, cold and unflinching. Something inside her shifted. If she couldn't undo the past, maybe she could cut the thread now. Maybe this was her chance. But another voice whispered in her chest, colder than guilt. And what if you fail again? Then, that night as the desert wind howled outside her quarters, she couldn't sleep. The folder lay open on the table. Two faces, the courier with the scar, his lieutenant. She lit a match, held it over the paper. The flame licked at the edge. But she couldn't let it burn, not yet. Instead, she whispered to the faces in the dark, I will find you, I will end this, even if it kills me. And for the first time in months, she felt something flicker inside her chest, not peace, not forgiveness, but the faintest ember of courage. Why was she chosen to lead the shot, when everyone knew she was the one who once froze? The desert night pressed close, air thick with dust that clung to her lips, her lashes. They had tracked the lieutenant's convoy for 3 days, moving silently through valleys carved by centuries of forgotten wind. Now, finally, they had him cornered. The unit lay prone along a jagged ridge, rifles trained downward. Below, a cluster of vehicles huddled beside a half-collapsed stone house. Lanterns flickered, shadows moved. The commander's voice cut low in her earpiece. Primary objective is alive. Confirm visual. She adjusted her scope. Through the green haze of night vision, she saw him. Ismail. Lean, sharp, his movements precise as he barked orders to the men around him. Her chest tightened. This was no faceless target. This was the thread to the courier, to the scarred man she had spared, to her own mistake. The commander again. Sniper team, you're on overwatch. If this goes loud, you take him first. And then, after a pause heavy enough to feel intentional, your lead. Her throat went dry. She almost turned, almost asked why me, but no words came. The decision had been made, and now the silence of her past was a weight on her trigger finger. Then, hours passed. The lieutenant moved in and out of the ruined house, gestures sharp, voice low but commanding. He was planning something. She could feel it in the way men leaned in, the way maps were unrolled, the way tension crackled like electricity around him. Her finger hovered near the trigger. Not yet, orders hadn't come. She hated waiting. Waiting gave her mind space to remember. She thought of the first briefing she had ever sat through, years ago, back before the sand and the silence, back when her hair was still long, when her parents still called her every week. She had joined not for glory, not for vengeance, but for escape. Escape from the hollow rooms of a home that had never felt like hers. Escape from the quiet grief of a mother who had lost too much, from a father who drowned himself in the bottom of a bottle. The military had given her structure, purpose, a family of sorts, until she fractured it herself. And now here she was, staring down a rifle at a man who might carry her redemption. Then, a voice crackled softly in her earpiece. The medic, how's your sightline? She exhaled, steady, clear. There was a pause, then his voice again, quieter. You don't have to prove anything tonight. Her chest squeezed. She almost laughed, but it came out hollow. "Don't I?" Silence followed, heavy, as if he didn't know how to answer. Or maybe he knew too well. Then the moment snapped when one of Ismail's men stepped outside, scanning the ridge. Too close, too sharp. The commander's voice. "They suspect, hold position, await my mark." But suspicion flared in the lieutenant's posture. He barked an order and suddenly the camp shifted. Men scattered into defensive positions. Lights dimmed, weapons raised. The trap was collapsing inward. "Engage," the commander snapped. Her crosshairs locked on Ismail's chest. Breath in, breath out, finger tight against the trigger. And then, a child's cry. It split the night, sharp, fragile, unmistakable. Her vision wavered, not here, not again. Through the scope she caught a flicker of movement, small, thin, darting from the ruin's shadows. A boy, no older than 10, clinging to the lieutenant's leg. Her stomach dropped. Why was there always a child? Her finger froze. Memories crashed like waves, the courier's children, the laughter, the hesitation, the mistake that had followed her into every night since. "Take the shot," the commander barked. Her lungs locked. The boy clung tighter, face buried in the lieutenant's coat. She couldn't, not like this. Another rifle cracked beside her, the spotter. The bullet screamed past. Dust erupted inches from the lieutenant's boot. He jerked, yanking the boy backward, shielding him instinctively. Chaos exploded. Gunfire ripped across the valley. Men shouted, scrambled. The boy vanished into the house. Her heart hammered. She had failed again. Or had she? Then the firefight stretched, brutal and close. Tracers sliced the night. The ridge thundered with recoil. She moved on instinct now, firing, reloading, firing again. Her body worked, her mind spun. Below, Ismail was dragged into the house by his men. Alive, still alive. "Suppress the compound," the commander ordered. Grenades roared, walls shook, but through the haze she saw the boy again, crawling out the back, unseen by most, his small frame silhouetted in the chaos. Something inside her snapped. Without thinking, she broke position, sliding down the ridge. Rocks tore at her palms, sand filling her boots. Voices shouted behind her, orders, warnings, but she didn't stop. The boy was running now, stumbling, terrified. She sprinted after him, heart hammering, not to kill, not to capture, to save. Her hand caught his arm, spinning him around. His eyes were wide, wild, full of fear. "SHH," she whispered, breath ragged. "I'm not here to hurt you." But how could he believe her? To him, she was just another soldier, another rifle. Bullets cracked past, biting into the sand. She pulled him down, shielding him with her body. For one heartbeat, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Her, and a boy who didn't belong to this war. And in that heartbeat, she remembered why she had hesitated months ago, why she hadn't pulled the trigger. Because sometimes courage wasn't killing, sometimes it was sparing. Then the fight ebbed as reinforcements closed in. Smoke rose from the ruins, shadows retreating. The lieutenant was gone, slipped through the chaos, vanished into the night. Again. But the boy remained, shaking, silent, his small hand clutching her sleeve. The commander's voice cracked through the radio, sharp, furious. "Report, status." She stared down at the boy. His dark eyes reflected firelight, fear, something too old for his age. Her throat closed. What could she say? That she had failed again. That she had let the lieutenant slip because she chose a child instead. Slowly she pressed her radio, voice low. "No casualties on our side, enemy scattered, lieutenant escaped." The silence that followed was worse than any reprimand. Then cold, "Understood, exfil point Bravo." The line went dead. She held the boy closer, heart pounding. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she had failed or finally done something right. Then, that night in the safe house, the medic found her sitting in the corner again. the boy asleep beside her, curled beneath a spare blanket. He crouched studying her face. Dirt smeared her cheek. Her eyes were hollow, distant. "You saved him," the medic said softly. She shook her head. "I lost the target." He frowned. "That boy isn't a target." Her hands trembled against her knees. Neither was the courier's child. The medic didn't answer. He just looked at her, eyes steady, seeing through the layers of silence she carried. Finally, he said, "Maybe this isn't about what you lose. Maybe it's about what you keep." She didn't reply, couldn't, but his words sank deep, finding the cracks inside her chest where guilt had lived too long. And for the first time in months, she felt the faintest weight shift, not gone but lighter. Because maybe, just maybe, courage wasn't only about taking the shot. Sometimes it was about holding fire. Why did no one speak to her on the ride back, except for the boy asleep against her arm? The hum of the vehicle's engine filled the night. Dust billowed in the headlights, a ghostly fog swallowing the desert road. The unit sat in silence, their faces grim, eyes hard. She felt their judgment without a word, every glance away from her, every jaw tightened, every breath too loud in the hollow dark. The boy slept with his head against her shoulder, small hand curled in her sleeve. His warmth bled through her uniform, fragile human, the kind of warmth she hadn't felt in years. She didn't move, didn't breathe too deep, because the moment she did, the silence would break and she wasn't ready for the storm that would follow. Then, at the safe house, the storm came. The commander slammed the door behind them, his voice sharp as shrapnel. "You disobeyed again." She stood at attention, but her body was taut, trembling inside. The boy sat in the corner, clutching the blanket she had wrapped him in, eyes wide, watching. The commander's fury cut through the room. "We had him, do you understand? That was our chance. Months of tracking burned, and why? Because you let." He stopped himself, words catching on the sight of the boy. His jaw clenched, his eyes hardened. "You let that distract you," he finished, voice low with disgust. Her throat ached. She wanted to argue, to scream that it wasn't distraction, it was humanity, but the words tangled. Because what if he was right? What if she had doomed them all for the sake of one frightened child? The silence thickened. No one defended her, not the spotter, not the younger soldiers, not even the medic. Finally, the commander turned away. "Get him out of my sight. Tomorrow we hand him over. Intelligence will decide what to do." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to protest to keep him safe, but orders pressed like chains. She saluted, turned sharply, and guided the boy to a separate room. His small hand slipped into hers as they walked, and in that quiet touch, something broke open inside her chest. Then, that night she couldn't sleep. She sat by the boy's cot, rifle leaning against the wall, the desert wind rattling loose shutters. The boy stirred in his sleep, murmuring in a language she barely understood. She reached out, brushing his hair back gently. His face was soft, younger than she had thought. A child pulled into war he didn't ask for. Her chest ached, and in that ache, memory flooded back. Her younger brother, a boy not much older than this one. She hadn't thought of him in years, hadn't allowed herself to. His laughter echoing in the small house, his endless questions, his dreams of escaping the town they both hated, and the silence that followed his absence. He had been 14 when he died. Wrong place, wrong time. A drive-by in a city street, not war, not combat, just life's cruelty. She had joined the military months later, carrying his ghost inside her chest, telling herself she would never let another child's laughter be silenced. But she had hesitated. She had spared a man who brought more war. She had failed her own promise. Now, staring at this boy, she felt the weight of her brother's shadow and wondered if this was her second chance. Then, morning came with tension like a blade. The boy was led into the briefing room, a translator waiting. He sat stiff, eyes darting between soldiers, his small hands gripping the chair. The commander asked questions through the interpreter. Names, places, faces. The boy shook his head. Tears brimmed but didn't fall. He refused to speak. The commander's patience thinned. He knows he was there, he saw, press him. The translator hesitated, glancing at the boy, then at her. Her chest tightened. She couldn't watch this, couldn't let them tear answers out of a child already broken by fear. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Let me try." The room stilled. The commander's eyes burned, but after a tense beat, he gave a single nod. She crouched beside the boy, lowering her voice. Gentle, careful, not like a soldier, like a sister. "You're safe here," she whispered, knowing he couldn't understand every word, but hoping he could feel the tone. "No one will hurt you." His eyes flicked to hers, suspicious, afraid, but not closed. She pulled something from her pocket, a coin she carried always, worn smooth by years. Her brother's coin, the last thing he had ever held. She placed it in the boy's palm. His fingers curled around it, his shoulders eased just slightly. And then finally he spoke. A name, a location, a phrase that made the translator freeze. The commander leaned in. What did he say? The translator's voice trembled. "He says the scarred man is his uncle." The room went cold. Her heart lurched. Uncle, family. The courier wasn't just a target, he was blood. And suddenly her hesitation months ago made sense. The children, the loyalty, the reason the man had carried them into danger. Her mercy hadn't spared just a stranger, it had spared a family. And now that choice had spiraled into this. Then the commander dismissed the briefing with clipped orders. The boy would be transferred, the information verified. The hunt for the courier accelerated. But as the others filed out, the commander stopped her with a hand on her arm. His eyes were steel. "You're too close," he said. "This isn't your mission anymore." The words hit harder than any bullet. She opened her mouth, but nothing came. Too close. Too emotional. Too broken. She watched him walk away, the boy's voice still echoing in her head. "Uncle." And for the first time, she wondered if courage would ever be enough to free her from the chains of guilt she had forged herself. Then, that evening, the medic found her outside, sitting on a step, staring at the horizon where the desert bled into fire-red sky. He lowered himself beside her, silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "They'll take him away tomorrow." She nodded, throat tight. "You don't agree," he added. Her jaw clenched. "He's just a boy." The medic's gaze softened. "And you think saving him will save you?" Her breath caught. The words pierced too close. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "We all carry something. Don't let yours drown you." She wanted to ask what he carried, what ghost haunted him, but his eyes stayed on the horizon, unblinking. And she realized he wasn't ready to share, just as she hadn't been. Silence settled between them, heavy yet fragile, the kind of silence that said more than words. And as the sun sank, she knew one thing with brutal clarity. If they took the boy tomorrow, she might never forgive herself. Why did she wake before dawn, her pulse already pounding? The safe house was quiet, shadows stretching long in the corners. The others still slept, their gear piled neatly beside cots. But she lay there wide-eyed, the weight of tomorrow pressing on her ribs like stone. Tomorrow they would take the boy. Tomorrow she would lose the last fragile piece of herself she had been clinging to. She sat up, hands trembling. Her boots hit the floor with a soft thud. She stared at the rifle resting by the door, then at the small cot across the room, where the boy curled under a blanket, coin still clutched tight in his fist. For a moment she thought she heard her brother's voice. Not words, just laughter, distant and sharp as memory. It hollowed her chest. She pressed her palms against her knees, breathing slow. She had followed orders all her life. Orders had defined her, protected her, crushed her. But this one, This one would break her. And if she let it happen, if she let him be swallowed by the machine, what was left of her courage? Then, at breakfast, the air was brittle. Soldiers ate in silence, metal utensils clinking too loud against steel plates. No one spoke to her. No one had since the briefing. The boy sat beside her, nibbling bread, glancing nervously at the commander at the head of the table. Every time their eyes met, he shrank. She kept her voice soft when she leaned toward him. "Eat, it's okay." He nodded, trusting her tone more than the words. The commander cleared his throat. "Transport arrives at 1700. Be ready." Her spoon froze midair. 1700 too soon. She forced herself to keep eating, to keep her face blank. But her mind spun, racing through possibilities. Could she talk to the commander again? Beg him? No, his eyes last night had been final, hard as iron. Could she run with the boy, slip away before transport came? Her pulse surged. Every scenario ended badly, but still the thought dug in like a thorn. Then, midday heat pressed heavy on the walls. She stood outside, boots kicking sand, staring at the horizon where nothing but dunes stretched infinite. The medic found her again. He seemed to always appear when silence threatened to crush her. "Can't sit still?" he asked. She shrugged, trying. His gaze swept over her, careful, quiet. "You're thinking about the boy." She didn't answer, didn't need to. The medic's lips pressed thin. "You can't save everyone." "I can save one," she whispered. His shoulders sagged. For the first time his eyes broke, a flicker of grief she hadn't seen before. "That's what I told myself once." She turned, searching his face. "What happened?" He shook his head. His jaw worked, but no words came. And she understood. Whatever he had lost, he wasn't ready to give voice to it. Still, that crack in his armor stayed with her as she walked away. A reminder that they all carried ghosts. And maybe, if she saved this boy, she could stop carrying hers. Then, the hours bled away. The boy sat by the window, tracing a shape in the glass with his finger. Circles, over and over, like he was trying to draw a world that wasn't this one. She crouched beside him. "Do you know what will happen tomorrow?" she asked softly, even though she knew he couldn't understand. His finger stopped. His eyes lifted to hers, and though no words passed, she saw it, the knowing, the fear. Her stomach turned. She leaned closer, voice trembling. "I won't let them take you." The words left her lips before she could stop them. A vow. The boy blinked, head tilting, as if he had felt the promise in her tone. He reached out, sliding the coin into her palm. Her brother's coin. "No," she whispered, pushing it back to him. "It's yours now." But he shook his head, pressing it firmly into her hand. His small strength undeniable, his eyes steady, even in fear. And for a moment she saw her brother again. Not in memory, not in grief, but in this boy's defiance, his silent refusal to be swallowed. Tears burned the edges of her vision. Then, 1700 drew near. Engines rumbled outside, dust rising in spirals. The transport had arrived. The commander ordered the unit to formation. The boy was pulled from the room, his face pale, steps reluctant. She followed at the rear, chest tightening with every stride. Outside, the transport truck waited, its metal shell glaring in the sun. 2 soldiers from another unit stood ready to receive him, papers in hand, guns at their sides. The boy froze when he saw them. His fingers clawed at her sleeve, desperate. Her breath caught. This was it, the moment. She looked at the commander. His nod was curt, final. Her muscles coiled, every instinct screaming. She could obey, step back, let him go, live with the weight of another ghost. Or, the boy's eyes locked on hers, wide, terrified, trusting. And she knew. Her body moved before her mind did. One sharp step forward, her hand closing around the boy. "No," she said, voice low but shaking. The commander turned, stunned. "What did you say?" She swallowed, throat dry as sand. Her grip tightened on the boy. "You can court-martial me. You can strip my name, my rank, but you're not taking him." The world froze. Soldiers stared. The hum of the transport engine filled the silence. The commander's face darkened, disbelief giving way to fury. "Stand down, now." Her heart hammered. Her knees wanted to buckle, but she held the boy behind her, body a shield. And for the first time in years, her voice did not tremble. "I won't." Then the standoff stretched long, unbearable. The unit shifted uneasily, caught between loyalty and conscience. The medic's gaze flicked between her and the boy, something unreadable in his eyes. Finally, the commander's voice cracked like a whip. "Take her weapon." Boots moved. Hands reached. In a blur, her rifle was gone, yanked from her grip. She didn't resist. Her focus stayed on the boy, whose hand clung tighter to hers. The commander stepped closer, breath hot with anger. "You've just destroyed your career." She lifted her chin. "I never cared about my career." The words left her mouth raw, unguarded, and in them she felt something tear-free. For years she had carried guilt like chains. But in this moment, standing defiant, protecting a child no one else would, she felt lighter. Not free, not yet, but lighter. Then the commander ordered her confined to quarters until higher command decided. The boy was placed under guard, still within the safe house walls. She sat in her room, door locked, window barred. Her hands shook, adrenaline still surging through her blood. But beneath the fear, beneath the consequences looming, she felt something she hadn't in years. Pride. Not the loud kind, not medals or recognition, but the quiet pride of finally choosing heart over orders. The quiet pride her brother would have recognized. And as night fell, and the desert wind howled through cracks in the walls, she whispered into the dark, "You're free, little brother. I didn't fail this time." Her chest loosened, her hands steadied. And in that silence, for the first time, she almost believed it. Why did the walls feel closer every hour she stayed inside them? Her quarters weren't a cell, not officially. But the locked door, the barred window, the silence outside, it might as well have been. She paced the length of the room until her boots wore a faint path in the floor, back and forth, back and forth. Her hands shook sometimes, not from fear of punishment, she had already accepted that. What unsettled her was the unknown. What would happen to the boy now? She pressed her forehead to the window bars. Beyond, the desert stretched pale under a dim moon, endless and empty. No answers out there, only the howl of wind carrying sand like ash. Her chest ached. She had chosen, she had stood, she had spoken her vow aloud. Yet courage, she realized, didn't erase consequences, it only sharpened them. Then the commander came for her at dawn. The door opened with a metallic groan. He stepped inside, uniform immaculate, jaw set hard. Two soldiers stood behind him, their expressions unreadable. "On your feet," he ordered. She stood, her spine straightened instinctively. Old training never left. He studied her for a long moment, silence thick. Then, "Why him? Why this one?" Her throat tightened. "Because he's a child." His eyes narrowed. Children grow up, children learn hate, and hate turns into men like your courier. She flinched at the word your. His tone sharpened. "You think you saved him, but you only delayed the inevitable. You risked the mission, risked your team, for what?" Her voice was steady when it came. "For one life, that's enough." The commander's lips pressed thin. He leaned closer, his whisper sharper than a shout. "You're wrong, it's never enough, and you'll learn that the hard way." He turned on his heel, motioning to the soldiers, "Take her." Her wrists were bound behind her back, the rope coarse against skin. They led her to a small room, barren, concrete walls, a single chair under a bare bulb. Interrogation, not trial. The door slammed shut. Then hours blurred, questions cut deep. Some came from the commander, others from men she didn't know, intelligence officers with voices flat as stone. Did you know the courier was his uncle? Were you protecting the boy or protecting the target? Are you compromised? She sat in the chair, sweat dripping, heart pounding, but her gaze didn't break. No, no, I made a choice. They circled her like wolves searching for cracks, but the truth was simple. She had chosen, and once spoken, truth didn't bend. Still, the questions gnawed. Had she been protecting him? Or had she been protecting herself, her need for redemption, her brother's ghost, her guilt? By the time they left her in silence again, she was shaking. Not from fear of them, from fear of herself. Then night fell. She sat alone, bound still, the ropes digging. Every sound outside her door made her tense, a boot scuff, a cough, a muttered voice. She waited for the moment they would come and drag the boy away forever. But instead, the door opened softly. The medic slipped inside, closing it behind him. His face was shadowed, eyes darting to the corners. He carried a canteen. Without a word, he knelt, pressed it to her lips. The water was warm, metallic, but she drank greedily. When she pulled back, her whisper was hoarse. "Where is he?" The medic's gaze lingered, then softened. "Still here, they haven't moved him yet." Relief rushed through her chest. Her shoulders sagged, ropes biting deeper. The medic exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "You realize you've split the team in half. Some think you're reckless. Some think you're the only one who remembered we're human." Her lips parted. "And you?" Silence. Finally his voice broke low. "My little sister. She was 12, wrong checkpoint, wrong day, wrong trigger finger. I told myself afterward that saving one life, just one, might balance it, but I never got the chance." His eyes met hers, raw and unguarded. "You have that chance, don't waste it." Her throat closed. She wanted to reach for him, to give him something back, but the ropes cut her still. And she realized she wasn't alone in carrying ghosts. Then, the next morning, the commander announced orders. The boy would be transferred at dusk, escorted by the intelligence men. No appeal, no delay. The unit said nothing. Their silence was heavy, fractured. Some eyes avoided hers. Others flicked with quiet sympathy, brief as sparks. She was led back to confinement, but the words echoed through her head like a clock ticking down. Dusk, dusk, dusk. Time running out. Then she sat against the wall, ropes binding her still, and thought of her brother again. His laughter, his sudden silence, the coin that had passed from him to her, to the boy, and back again. She closed her eyes. This is the last chance, don't fail twice. The door opened. A soldier stepped in, not the medic, not the commander. A younger one, barely past 20. His face was pale, jaw tight. He hesitated, then crouched, loosening the knots at her wrists. She stared, stunned. "Why?" His whisper shook. "Because when you stood out there yesterday, I wanted to move. I wanted to stop them, but I didn't. I froze. I won't freeze again." The rope slipped free. Blood rushed back to her hands, pins and needles stinging. She wanted to thank him, but he was already backing toward the door. "Dusk," he murmured. "That's all I can give you." The door clicked shut. Her pulse thundered. The boy, the transfer, the choice that had become inevitable. Then, that evening, the desert turned gold with fatting sun. The truck idled outside, its engine rumbling. The intelligence officers waited, impatient. The commander barked orders, soldiers forming lines. The boy pushed forward between them. His eyes darted, frantic, searching for her. She moved before thought caught up. Through the side door, silent, swift. Her boots hit sand, her body cut between shadows, her hands still raw but steady now. Every breath was fire, every heartbeat a drum. She saw him, the boy, stumbling toward the truck, fear etched across his face. And she knew this was it, her last chance to keep her vow, her last chance to turn guilt into something else. One act of courage. She broke cover. Shouts erupted, boots thundered, the commander's voice roared her name like a curse. But her eyes never left the boy. He saw her, and his face lit with desperate relief. She lunged, grabbing his arm, pulling him back away from the truck, away from the hands that reached. Bullets didn't fly, not yet. Confusion reigned first, soldiers shouting, no one wanting to be the first to cross a line. The commander stormed forward, fury blazing. "Stand down, you're done, do you hear me?" Her voice cracked, loud enough to echo across the sand. "Not until he's free." The boy clung to her, his small body shaking. And for a heartbeat in the chaos, she felt something almost like peace. Because even if it ended here, she had finally done what her brother would have wanted. She had not turned away. Why did the silence after her shout feel louder than gunfire? She stood in the desert dust, one arm shielding the boy, the other raised instinctively though no weapon lay in her hands. Soldiers froze in half steps, rifles half lifted, eyes darting to the commander. The commander's face was stone, fury burning beneath the surface. He pointed, voice thunder. "Take her down." No one moved. The unit hung suspended in a fragile stillness, like a wire stretched to breaking. Boots dug into sand, fingers trembled on triggers, but no shot came. She felt the boy's heartbeat hammer against her side, rapid, terrified. She lowered her voice, steady despite the storm inside. "Please, don't." Her words carried. They struck like a ripple through the soldiers, men and women caught between order and conscience. And then from the back of the line, the medic's voice cut clear. "She's right." Every head snapped toward him. The commander's jaw clenched. "What did you say?" The medic stepped forward, slow, deliberate, hands open. His eyes locked on the commander, but his voice carried for all. "You want us to hand a child over to a machine that doesn't care if he lives or dies." She remembered what we forgot. Murmurs stirred. Uncertainty cracked the silence. The commander's face darkened, but his voice was iron. "This isn't about care. It's about duty. We follow orders or we're nothing." Her chest burned. She found her voice again, sharp with fire. "No, we follow orders and we lose ourselves. That's worse than nothing." The medic's gaze flicked to her, and for the first time they stood together. Two voices against the tide. The commander saw it too. His hand lifted, a signal. One order and rifles would answer. The boy whimpered, pressing his face into her side. She tightened her grip around him. And then a third voice rose. The young soldier who had loosened her ropes. His rifle dipped. His voice shook but didn't break. "Sir, with respect, I can't aim at her." It was enough, a crack in the wall. Another rifle lowered, then another. Soldiers shifting, uncertain, hearts louder than orders. The commander roared, "All of you stand down, that's an order." But for the first time, his command echoed hollow. Then the intelligence officers at the truck bristled, hands on sidearms, eyes sharp with calculation. To them, this wasn't about ghosts or guilt. This was about control. One stepped forward, voice like a blade. "This is insubordination, treason." Her voice cut back, cold as steel. "Then I'll wear the name." The officer's hand twitched near his weapon. Tension surged. One wrong move and the desert would explode with blood. The medic stepped closer, hand raised toward the officer. "No, if anyone fires, this boy dies first. That's what you're creating. Is that the report you want to write?" The words hung sharp, undeniable. Even the officers hesitated, their authority fragile in the face of truth spoken aloud. Then the commander's eyes burned into hers. Years of command, of obedience, of battles fought under rigid rules, all crashing against this moment where one soldier had chosen heart over chain. "You think this makes you righteous?" he hissed. "You've doomed us all." She shook her head. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "No, I finally remembered why we fight." The words weren't for him. They were for the soldiers frozen around them, caught between fear and choice. for the boy clinging to her sleeve, for her brother whose ghost lingered still. Something shifted in the silence. Not victory, not yet, but the wire stretched between them didn't snap, it bent. Then the sun slid lower, bleeding red into the horizon. Shadows lengthened. Sweat trickled down brows. The desert air trembled with the weight of a decision no one wanted to make. Finally, the commander's hand lowered, not in surrender, in fury disguised as restraint. "Fine," he spat. "He stays for now, but this isn't over, not for him, not for you." Her knees almost buckled with relief, but she stood tall, the boy still pressed against her. The rifles lowered fully. Soldiers exhaled as if they'd been holding breath for hours. The officers cursed under theirs, retreating toward the truck, disgust plain on their faces. Paperwork would be filed. Chains of command rattled. But in this desert tonight they had been checked. The commander turned his back, storming toward the safe house, every step a thunderclap of rage. And in his retreat, the fragile wire snapped, not in violence but in release. She knelt finally, meeting the boy's eyes. His small hand reached for hers, pressing the coin back into her palm. This time she didn't push it away. She curled her fingers around it, tears burning. "You're safe," she whispered, though she knew safety was never that simple. Still, she said it. Still, she believed it enough for both of them. Then, that night the unit didn't speak much. They ate in quiet, movements subdued, every soldier carrying the weight of what had nearly happened. But the silence wasn't the same as before. It wasn't judgment. It wasn't exile. It was reflection. Eyes lingered on her a fraction longer. Not with trust yet, not with forgiveness, but with something softer. Recognition, maybe, or the faint spark of belief. The medic sat across from her. Their eyes met. No words passed. They didn't need them. The boy dozed on a bench beside her, exhaustion pulling him under. His small breaths were steady, his face finally uncreased by fear. For the first time since she had met him, he looked like a child again. And for the first time in years, she felt the weight in her chest shift, not gone, never gone, but lighter. Then, yet as she lay awake that night, staring at the cracked ceiling, she knew the commander wasn't finished. His silence now was not surrender. It was a wound, festering, waiting to strike. She turned her palm, staring at the coin glinting faint in moonlight. Her brother's coin, the boy's coin, now hers again. One act of courage had carried her this far. But she knew another would be asked soon. And the next one might cost her everything. The desert never slept. Even in the stillness before dawn, the air trembled with waiting. She rose before the others, slipping quietly past sleeping bodies sprawled in uneven rows. The boy stirred on his bench, hand twitching until it found her sleeve even in dreams. She stayed a moment, her palm resting lightly on his hair before pulling free. Her boots crunched softly on the sand outside. She walked to the edge of the outpost, where the horizon burned faint with the first touch of morning. The coin sat heavy in her fist. She whispered into the dawn, "Tell me I did right." No voice answered, only the desert wind, carrying whispers that sounded too much like silence. Then, by midday, the unease turned real. The truck roared back across the plain, dust plumbing behind it like a storm. But it wasn't alone. Two more followed, heavier, armored. The soldiers shifted uneasily, watching from the outpost's wall. The commander's face gave nothing away as the convoy stopped, kicking up waves of sand. Doors opened. Men in darker uniforms emerged, not just intelligence officers. Higher. Their insignia marked them as something heavier, tribunal investigators. The kind summoned when questions of loyalty threatened to infect a unit. At their center stood the courier, the man whose whispers had started all this. His smug calm was intact, but now reinforced by authority behind him. The boy's hand found hers again. This time he was awake, eyes wide, fear sharp and wordless. The commander strode forward to meet the newcomers. His salute was crisp, "Commanders, you honor us." The lead investigator's reply was cold. "Honor is not why we're here. Reports indicate insubordination. A soldier obstructing orders, hiding assets." His eyes flicked not at the boy but at her. "We're here to see the matter corrected." The courier smiled faintly, as if the desert itself bent toward him. Then the soldiers tensed. No one dared speak, but every gaze slid toward her. Some with fear, some with guilt, some with quiet solidarity. She stepped forward before anyone else could. Her voice carried steady. "If you want him, you'll go through me." A ripple cut through the ranks. The investigator's brow arched. "You confess." "I confess nothing," she shot back. "I claim something. That boy is not a weapon. He's a child. And no chain of command can make me deliver him to a death you'll never admit on record." The courier's smugness cracked just slightly. His eyes narrowed, sharp with frustration. The commander's jaw tightened. "She doesn't speak for this unit." But then the medic stepped forward. His rifle hung loose at his side, but his stance was clear. "She speaks for me." And then the young soldier followed, shoulders stiff but head high. "And me." More boots shifted, more rifles dipped. Loyalty fractured in plain daylight, no longer whispers but declarations. The investigators saw it, the commander saw it, and rage flared. The lead officer snapped, "This ends now, arrest her." The courier's hand twitched toward the boy, as if he could snatch victory with one grasp. Then the moment shattered into chaos. Soldiers surged, some moving to obey, others moving to block. Shouts collided with shouts, boots grinding sand, rifles swinging but not yet firing. The boy screamed, clinging to her arm. She shoved him behind her, body a shield. Her hand fell to the sidearm at her hip, not raised yet but ready. The commander barked orders, his voice iron, but fewer obeyed this time. The investigators cursed, their authority crumbling in the desert wind. The courier lunged. She drew. The coin slipped from her palm, falling into the sand as her pistol leveled. For the first time in years, her aim did not shake. The courier froze, staring down the barrel. His confidence bled away in an instant. "You won't," he hissed, trying to summon certainty. Her voice was low, but it carried, "Try me." The desert held its breath. Then the standoff stretched eternal. Then the commander stepped between them. His chest rose with fury, but his eyes told another story. Not surrender, not yet, but something fractured inside him. He spoke, voice hoarse but loud enough for all. "Enough. If you want her gone, you'll have to drag half this unit with her." Gasps rippled. Soldiers blinked, unsure if they'd heard right. The investigators' faces twisted. The courier snarled, "You can't protect her. You'll be stripped of rank." The commander's glare silenced him. Better stripped than broken. For a long, impossible moment, no one moved. And then, one by one, the investigators withdrew. Not defeated, but delayed. Their reports would poison papers far away, in offices where desert wind never blew. But here today they had lost. The convoy engines roared, retreating into the horizon. The courier cast one last venomous glance back at her, at the boy, at the coin half buried in sand. But he left. Then silence fell heavy in the aftermath. Soldiers shifted, unsure, glancing at the commander, the same man who had nearly condemned them hours before. He didn't look at them, he looked only at her. His voice was quiet, raw. "Don't think this makes us the same." She holstered her weapon, her reply was steady. "It doesn't, but it means you remembered too." For the first time, he said nothing. Then, that night the desert was strangely calm. No arguments, no shouting, no tribunal hovering like a blade overhead. She sat alone by the fire, the boy curled against her side, fast asleep. The medic joined her, lowering himself into the sand across the flames. His eyes softened at the sight of the child, then lifted to hers. "You know this won't last," he said quietly. "They'll send others, higher, harsher, they won't stop." Her hand closed around the coin she had dug back from the sand. She turned it in her palm, its worn edges cutting faint into her skin. "I know," her voice was steady, "but he'll have this night, he'll have tomorrow, that's more than he would have had." The medic studied her, then nodded once. "Sometimes that's enough." They fell into silence, the fire crackling low. Above them the stars scattered wide and endless, indifferent to chains, tribunals, or couriers. And for the first time in years, she felt her brother's ghost not as a weight, but as a presence, watching, maybe even approving. She whispered into the flames, words only the night could hear. "I carried it as far as I could." And the desert answered not with silence, but with wind that felt like breath. Then morning came. The boy woke, rubbing sleep from his eyes, clinging to her sleeve as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She rose, stretched aching muscles, and turned to face the horizon. The war wasn't over, the chains hadn't vanished. But for one child, for one unit, for one night where rifles stayed quiet and conscience won, humanity had carried the flag. And she had carried it alone, each step echoing sacrifice, dignity, and unspoken strength. Not forever, but long enough.